If you're like most moms I've talked to recently, you know that self-care is something that you should be doing. I could do a whole episode on should, but we're gonna move past that for a moment. And I think that one thing that moms struggle with is what self-care actually means. There's a lot of talk out there about bubble baths and face masks, and while those can be really great for taking care of the physical body, there are more aspects to self-care that I want to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about self-care through the eye of the five love languages.
Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we're actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can all still be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it.
So, welcome back to Imperfect Momming. It's been a minute since I've released an episode, and that was because I have decided that I want to do more solo episodes. And one of the reasons I haven't done solo episodes in the past is because I was telling myself a story that I don't know what to say. And so I have been talking a lot with ChatGPT and really trying to figure out my best method of communicating my message. And as I was talking to Chat this morning, I actually was inspired by the idea of talking about self-care through the eyes of the five love languages. If you're not familiar with the five love languages, it is a book written by Gary Chapman, and it has had a really profound impact on my life and on my relationship, not only to my son, but to my dad and also to myself. And it came up in a coaching session yesterday where we were talking about self-care, and one thing that my client said is that she's really hard on herself. And I kind of put a pin in that when she said it, and then we were talking about the five love languages. And if you're not familiar, I'll just give you a quick rundown of what they are: words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving and receiving, quality time, and physical touch. And so when we continued our conversation, she had never heard of the five love languages, but one thing is that sometimes the way that we show love to someone is the way that we want love shown back to us. And a lot of times we don't recognize this. And so that I think that that's a huge miscommunication between couples. If my love language is acts of service, and my partner tells me how amazing I am all the time, words of affirmation, I may not feel the love that he's trying to communicate. And if I do things for him and his love language is words of affirmation, he may not feel love from me because I'm not speaking his language. So I hope that's clear about how there's that miscommunication in couples and in relationships. And this is what came to, I had this huge aha with my dad, is that we had different love languages in some areas. We actually had the same love language. Quality time is huge for me, spending time with people. And I believe that that was his love language too. But we never had something that we connected on, right? So he loved to watch sports, and I didn't. And he didn't understand that when I wanted to go to the store with him, that I wasn't wanting him specifically to buy me a pack of gum, which gift giving is another way that I feel loved. He interpreted that as the only reason I wanted to go with him to the grocery store was so that he would buy me something. When really I just wanted to spend that quality time with him because I would leave to go to church with him an hour before church was supposed to start. He was the pastor, and I would go with him just to spend the time together in the car, even though we didn't talk about anything. So that was a realization that I had later on in life. And that got me to thinking about my relationship with my son. And I asked him, what does mommy do that makes you feel the most loved? Because he was 6 years old and he didn't know what the love languages were. And so I just used language that he would understand. And his response was that he loved when we snuggle. And what's powerful about that is that that was something that I was doing the least with him at the time for many different reasons that we don't need to go into in this episode. But I started making that a priority, that snuggle time in the morning. And so when I was talking with my client yesterday, I thought, oh, that's a great way to show self-love. And self-love is self-care. And what I said to her was recognizing where you are being hard on yourself and just notice. We don't need to change anything yet. Let's just notice where we're saying these negative thoughts to ourselves. So, as I was getting ready this morning for my day, I was thinking about, oh, self-love using the five love languages. I love this idea, and so I jumped on here to share it with you. So, my goal for you by the end of this episode is to have a couple of ideas of how you can use your love language for self-care. So, again, I'll repeat the five love languages, words of affirmation. So I gave that example in the partner situation, right? Where, your partner or you say, you're so amazing, you're so great. I love how you do this and I love how you do that. That's words of affirmation. Acts of service is doing things for people. So if you feel good when and feel like you're showing love by doing the dishes and making dinner and cleaning the house, right? Those are acts of service. So when you love when people do things for you, you're probably an acts of service kind of person. Receiving gifts is the third one. I resonate with all of the love languages, I'll just tell you that. When I was in high school, I had my first like real boyfriend, and I think we got together maybe in October, and I was like, okay, well, Valentine's Day is only in a couple of months and Christmas is coming up. And so I bought like 3 or 4 gifts. Now, I love giving gifts to people. And so when I got the gift for him, I told him, "Oh my gosh, I got you this gift and for Christmas and I got you something for Valentine's Day." And he was like, "Well, I want to have it now." And so I gave it to him because I just love giving gifts. And then he broke up with me because his mom said I was trying to buy his love. So, quality time. I gave you my example of quality time with my dad. I would just love riding in the car with him, even if we weren't talking. I would have preferred if we talked, but that wasn't the relationship that we had. But just that being in close proximity to my dad really felt good. And then physical touch. And you may be thinking, oh, that's my husband. So I think a lot of men do have a physical touch as part of their love language, but that's not always the case either. So if you love hugs, if you love to have, oh, I could just feel like having someone just rub the top of my head, like, oh, it just feels so good. Like those are the physical touch kind of things. So, how do we apply the five love languages to self-care? So, let's start with words of affirmation. Something that you can do every day is write daily affirmations in your journal. You can record voice notes to yourself. You can celebrate those small wins out loud. One thing that I just recently got into is called EFT. It's also known as tapping, and EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And that's a really good way to state your affirmations in a way that's going to really get them into your body. Maybe we can talk about that in another episode if you're interested. Shoot me a note and I'll do an episode on that. So, those are words of affirmation. Acts of service. You could meal prep for yourself in the future. You could declutter your space. You can schedule your appointments so that you don't have to stress later. So those are just a couple of ideas that, quite frankly, ChatGPT came up with. So as I read through these, my goal is that you can come up with ideas of your own. So journaling is something that I have a love-hate relationship with. Sometimes I love it and sometimes I hate it. And more accurately, sometimes I love it and sometimes I avoid it. So, my goal for you is to hear these and get some ideas. And hopefully you hear yourself in, if you don't already know what your love language is, you can hear them in some of the examples that I give. And if you're not sure, you can always jump onto ChatGPT or jump onto Google and ask, like, what are some ideas of acts of service that are also self-care? It's not necessarily to tell you what to do. I say this now because, meal prepping for the future doesn't really sound like self-care to me specifically, but I don't know that acts of service is high on my love language lists. So, receiving gifts. You can treat yourself to flowers, candles, or something small that brings you joy. I love this idea because a lot of times in the past, I know that I have wished that someone would buy me flowers or send me flowers to work. And it would never happen except on my birthday? And so I have bought myself flowers in the past where it's like, I just want to have flowers in my living room. So I love that idea personally, but buying a book or a tool that supports your growth. I also love that idea because I love personal development. I love personal growth. You can also create a self-care box of things that make you feel loved. So when you're wanting to take a moment to yourself, you could pull out this box, and I have all of those things that I have for myself. They actually sit on my desk. I have them sitting just everywhere so that when I'm looking around, I have all the things that just make me feel happy. Quality time. You can block solo time without distractions. And I know as a mom, this can be difficult. And it is one of the things that I hear the most with some of my clients is that they just don't have that alone time because they have the kids. And one tip that I'll give for that is when you spend 10 minutes of quality time one-on-one with your child or your children individually. So if you have 5 kids, then this is going to take 50 minutes, but you can spend that 10 minutes one-on-one with them. And once you do that, my son and I call it love bucket. Their love bucket is full or fuller than maybe it was before. And so when their needs get met, they're less likely to come to you and interrupt you. And so you can take that 10 minutes to yourself when you're done with your 10 minutes with your children. If you're a working mom and you commute to and from your job, that solo time could just be 5 minutes sitting in the driveway before you get out of the car, before you go into the house, before you start doing the laundry, before you start cooking dinner, before the kids are grabbing at your ankles because you've been gone all day. Just giving yourself that moment to decompress because there's a lot of overstimulation that happens when you're a mom. You can also go on a solo date with yourself. So you can go to a coffee shop, a museum, or a park. I love this idea. There's a time that I would have rather shot myself in the foot than go to a coffee shop by myself, but I've had a little bit of growth since then. Spending time doing an activity that you love just for you. I love to cross stitch. If you've been a listener to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about cross stitching. I will sit and cross stitch for hours on end if I had the opportunity. And so I just love kind of zoning out. My hands are busy. I'll watch TV or whatever and just sit there and cross stitch. Physical touch. This is where, like, you could have a luxury bath, do some skincare, get yourself a massage. Those are usually the things that people recommend when it comes to self-care. So, getting a cozy blanket, stretching, or yoga. My son has one of those weighted blankets that he just loves. And I know that physical touch is probably up there on his five love languages. So those weighted blankets, totally worth the investment. You can place your hand over your heart or give yourself a hug during tough moments. I want to encourage you to identify your primary and secondary love language. If you haven't identified it just through listening, I'm sure there's a love languages test out there. I think there's a love languages test inside the Five Love Languages book. It's been a minute since I read the book, so I don't remember specifically, but I would imagine that a quick Google search will find you a test. But without a test, I think the easiest way is look at how you show love to other people, to your spouse, to your mom, to your children. So outside of the roles that we have in caring for them, what do you do to show them love? Do you sit and color with them? Do you give them lots of hugs? Do you tell them how amazing they are? Those are clues. Also, another way to kind of figure out what your love language is how do you wish your partner would show you love? Like, do you wish they would take the trash out without being asked? Do you wish that they would tell you that they love you more? Do you wish that they would just snuggle and watch TV in bed with you? So, those are some clues as well. And then once you've identified your primary and secondary love language, you can ask yourself, how can I give myself love today in a way I receive it best? This is such a powerful question. And if you just let go of your mind might immediately say, I don't know, say thank you, mind, and repeat the question and just sit and listen. And if you just sit and listen for a moment, something will pop into your head. I want you to experiment with some of the ways that you practice self-care. You can try one of each of the ones that I've suggested, or the ones that popped into your head when you heard my suggestions. You can ask ChatGPT again. You can Google, what are some ways that I can show myself love that is going to make you feel the most nourished? Because that's really what self-care is about, is nourishing ourselves and showing ourselves that we're a priority and that we are loved. Self-care isn't one size fits all. And when I look out into the land of social media, especially several years ago, it was all kind of one size fits all. Take a bubble bath, go get a massage, get your nails done, get your hair done. There's nothing wrong with those things. I do all of those things, but they do focus more on the physical body and not the spirit. Our body is important, our spirit's important, our mind is important. All of them are important, but we don't want to just get locked into, I have to spend money in order to take care of myself, because that's also not true. Using your love language for self-care can make it that much more meaningful. I'd love to hear what your favorite self-care love language is and what you decide to start implementing. Feel free to tag me on social media. I'm at Coach Alysia Lyons on all the platforms. email me, or if you're not part of the community, I'd love for you to join. And you can join at alysialyons.com/community. And just a quick little reminder that self-care isn't selfish. It is essential to this beautiful job that we've been given called motherhood. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. And if my podcast is part of your self-care routine, I would love to hear that as well. I'm a words of affirmation girl too, but I would absolutely love if you are not already subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And I'd love to hear from you. If you aren't on my email list and would like to be, shoot me an email at info@alysialyons.com. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.